Stores like Nordstrom Rack, TJ Maxx, Ross, they've been really popular over the last few decades because they allegedly buy overstock products, discontinued stuff, slightly flawed products, last season's stuff that didn't get sold is now sold at Nordstrom Rack. And a lot of times they do this to reduce waste, but especially to get a really good deal on some products that might be out of a lot of people's price range. But brands have been caught intentionally making cheaper versions of their products to sell straight to stores like Ross, TJ Maxx, and Nordstrom Rack, so that it seems like you're getting the real deal full price product at a discounted price, when in all reality, you're just getting a cheaper alternative. And that's already been proven several times over again, and that's part of the strategy of these brands, especially with the clothing. But is that the case with the footwear? To find out, I went to Nordstrom Rack and bought what looks, emphasis on looks, like some of the most popular footwear right now in 2025, so that we can cut it in half, run through all of our tests to really figure out, are you actually buying highly discounted, high quality products from Nordstrom Rack, or are you just buying cheap junk posing as quality that's made to look like the mainstream product but with none of the substance? Can you trust Nordstrom Rack's footwear generally? And even if these are some cheaper alternatives with some cheaper materials, are they still worth that discounted price that you can really only get from Nordstrom Rack? That's what we're gonna figure out. So what do we have here? What are the containers and what are they supposed to look like? Brand is Converse. The style is a Chuck Taylor All-Star Canvas. They weigh 11 ounces. They retail for really cheap, $65. They're made in Indonesia. And this is just one of the most popular shoes of all time. It's your Chuck Taylors. Everyone knows them. So then what is this that we got from Nordstrom Rack? Well, the brand is Converse. The style is the Chuck Taylors. They're a little bit lighter by 2 ounces, weighing in at 9 ounces. I bought them from Nordstrom Rack for $50 instead of the $65. And these are also made in Vietnam, but they are definitely lighter and they feel cheap. That's why I got them. I was like, there's no way these are regular Chucks. So what is the difference between these two? Well, looking at the upper, the canvas is exactly the same. It's 0.66 millimeters thick, both cotton canvas. We burned it to make sure it was fully cotton canvas, and it is. One thing that is different is on this pair from Nordstrom Rack, you can see this is a canvas toe cap versus your classic rubber toe cap. You can clearly see that the eyelets are smaller. These are smaller, cheaper eyelets, but it might just be for style. I'm not sure if there's actually a quality difference. We did a quick impromptu poll test just because this video is so long, and it does seem like these are a little bit weaker eyelets. I'll just do it right now, actually. Let me show you. It's just because these eyelets are smaller and these laces are a little bit thinner, I feel like it's not as strong. So when I really crank on this, the canvas overstretches and you start to lose some of the grip on those eyelets just because they're so much smaller. A lot of people have no idea that Rose Anvil started as a leather goods company and especially a camera gear company, because in 2018, we launched our very first, well, second Kickstarter, raised $500,000 for a camera harness. COVID hit immediately after, and so we started cutting boots and shoes in half from a professional leather worker's perspective. And then that whole thing happened, you know, now we're nearly at 1 million subscribers. But I finally got around to designing all the rest of the camera gear that I've been wanting to release for like the last 5 years, starting with the little slim wrist strap, cinches down, hand sewn. It's our belt thickness leather, so it's super sturdy. Our slim neck strap, same kind of concept. Really simple attachments, solid brass, hand sewn details, a little neck piece there. The lasso link, which is one of my favorites because this thing is super articulate. You see all these little individual pieces and how they flow and move around. Our Lone Bandit that you've probably heard me talking about plenty, that holds one camera at about as comfortably as humanly possible because it distributes your weight over a larger surface area. And then the Big Daddy, the full Bandit harness. This carries 2 to 3 cameras, because you can get a third camera attachment with the Pro package, and everything is designed by me and handmade right here in the shop. So if you need to get some Christmas gifts, some birthday gifts, if you need to upgrade your camera gear, or if you got an old camera just sitting around, you need a good excuse to pull it out, get yourself a little strap, check them out below, and thanks for supporting our handmade leather goods that makes this whole channel possible. But one of the biggest differences is the lining, because your regular Chuck Taylors, your full price Chuck Taylors are canvas on the inside, really nothing back in it, just old school style of doing it, versus these that we got from Nordstrom Rack are more like your modern sneakers. This is just your typical sneaker material backed by a little bit of foam, but we've also seen Converse do this lining in some of their other models. Another thing that's clearly different is, first of all, this is removable, whereas your regular Chuck Taylors, it's glued in there, so when you actually do try to separate this, you start pulling the foam away, so it's not really removable. And it's a different material. It's a little bit better foam, it looks like. This is more like your Ortholite foam, and instead of this hard rubber wedge at the heel, you've got a lot softer foam wedge. But neither of those are really enough to point to it being a cheaper alternative. Even down to the Converse logo, it's embroidered on instead of a patch. And really the only thing you can point to is the eyelets being a little bit smaller, but I don't think that was a price-saving thing. I think it was mostly for style. So initially, from the outside, is this a cheaper alternative to your regular Chucks? It doesn't seem like it. They just seem like a different different version of Chucks. But I don't think there's enough to point to initially to say it's cheaper. But this is what concerns me. This feels so cheap and so thin. You should not be able to do this to an outsole of any footwear. Like, this is just not what you're looking for. Like, that is ridiculous. So we'll really see when we get it cut in half. But next, one of the most popular shoes of the last 5 years, these ended up being like $1,000 on resale sites. Just the most overhyped sneakers, in my opinion, of the last 5 years. But people love them, and so there's a lot of alternatives to the Nike Dunks. So then what is this mainstream popular shoe? Well, the brand is Nike. The style is the Dunk Low Retro. They weigh 13 ounces. They retail for $120. They're made in China. And like I said, this has just been, the Panda Dunks are one of the staples of style of the last 5 years. And so that's why when I went to Nordstrom Rack and I saw this, I just thought it was a dunk. You know, like, obviously I do sneaker reviews and stuff, but at first glance, you can see why a lot of people would just assume that's a dunk. But it's not. The brand is Nike, but the style is the Court Vision Low Sneaker. They weigh 13 ounces. I bought this from Nordstrom Rack for $64, so about half the price of the Dunks. And these are made in Vietnam. So now that we know they're not both Dunks, what's the actual difference in materials? Because your Dunks actually, you know, in my initial video on these, I was like, Dunks are dumb, it's overhyped. I still think they are, but they are a pretty decent shoe. We've seen some of the Vans alternatives, we saw the New Balance alternatives, and the Dunks keep winning. And that's because the whole upper is leather. I don't think there's a single patch of fake leather on this upper of this sneaker. And if it is, it's probably just the swoosh. Versus the Nordstrom Rack version, there's no leather anywhere. It's all fake leather. I think every single panel on this is fake leather. And a lot of people are like, well, it doesn't matter. It's just, I don't have to kill an animal. But especially with this kind of sneaker where they're hyped up and people want creases and stuff, fake leather creases when you look at it. Just like, look at that top-down view. We only wore these around for the B-roll, and you can see a huge divot right there and that crumpling caused by the fact that it's not real leather, because it's just plastic on top of either a fibrous material or foam. It just doesn't have that tighter and denser fiber structure that leather does. So it doesn't last as long, it looks worse, it scuffs easier, it falls apart a lot easier, but it is a lot cheaper to make a product. But this whole shoe is synthetic leather all the way through. But if you look at the lining on the inside, it's fairly similar to the Dunks. The insole's fairly similar. The lasting board's fairly similar. It's still a cup sole just like the Dunks. It has that sidewall stitch that's real just like the Dunks. So we'll see really where the sins are hidden on the inside of the shoe. If just the fact that there's not any leather on this whatsoever isn't a big enough sin to dissuade you from it, this is a pretty bad one. You know, and this clearly seems like an attempt to sell dunk-like shoes to people that can't afford the real deal. And honestly, like, the biggest thing that would bother me is like if somebody bought these for their kid, they're like, oh, you got me, oh, those aren't Dunks. Like, those are like knockoff Dunks. I can't wear those because they're not the real deal. And just like the Converse, I don't think you should be able to do this to your outsole of a sneaker. Like, this is below bare minimum standard of what you should expect in any footwear. Like, that just completely deforming. So I'm willing to bet that you don't have that foam midsole on the inside. So I don't know what this midsole is or isn't, but I don't think it's built like the Dunks. So at least from the outside, this is clearly a cheaper alternative and a cheap imitation of the real deal Dunks. But we'll see when we get it cut in half. Next to maybe the #2 most popular shoe of the last 5 years, or even like the last 2 years, the Sambas. Like, these blew up in popularity like maybe 3 years ago. Everyone's got a pair now, they're really popular. And so what is this shoe? Well, the brand is Adidas. The style is the Samba OG. They weigh 12 ounces. They retail for a flat $100, made in Vietnam. And this is a pretty decent shoe for $100. You get like real leather, got this nice thick outsole. It really is an affordable soccer shoe that people are wearing for casual shoes. This is a rare occasion where the mainstream popular shoe is actually a pretty decent shoe at a decent price. So what do we have to compare it? Well, I actually bought 2 shoes because they're clearly made to look just like Sambas. They have this exact distinctive toe shape. They have the white and gum sole silhouette. So what are these shoes? Well, first we've got the brand is Adidas. The style is the VL Court 3.0 sneaker. They weigh 13 ounces. I got them from Nordstrom Rack for $55, so almost half the price of regular Sambas. These are also made in Vietnam. And comparing it to the brand is Puma. The style is the Club 2 Era. They weigh 13 ounces. I bought them from Nordstrom Rack for $52, and they're also made in Vietnam. And this is another one. I just picked this up and I was like, this feels way too cheap to be a real sneaker. Like, light pressure completely deforms the outsole. Like, is there more than 1 millimeter of rubber on this outsole? And same thing with these Adidas. That's why I bought both of them, because all these shoes, you shouldn't be able to do this to your shoe. That's insane. You know, it's like maybe in your barefoot wide toe box world, but no, they just felt so cheap. I had to know what's on the inside, because the Samba is a really decent shoe. You have a really thick outsole. It's fairly structured. It's got good materials in the uppers. I think it's leather all the way through, except for the lining, which I don't know why I hate fake leather on the inside especially. But how do these compare? Well, these Adidas, no surprise, fake leather again. So this looks like real leather on the outside, but it's completely fake. And you would assume it's like, well, no, it's got real leather because this is suede at the toe. That is technically real leather, but it's the only part that's real. It's like the only part that you can always tell for sure if it's fake or if it's real. They made out of real leather, and then the rest is just garbage. And this is inferior for the exact same reason we talked about. It's less durable, it crinkles, it rips, it's just garbage, it looks terrible, gives you no support, no structure. Are the Pumas at least a little bit better? No, honestly, it's once again fake leather for the majority of the shoe, but these highly visible parts with the suede, it is real suede, but the majority of the shoe is fake leather. But like the rest of the shoes, you know, the other parts are fine. Like the insoles are fairly similar, the lasting board's fairly similar. It's just really sneaky what they're doing clearly across the board with these. I don't know what's going on the outsoles, but every single one of these is garbage. And then they're sneaking in fake leather on spots that you would have no idea. And so these fit perfectly with that trend. The only ones that might be different are the next pair, which are your Jordan 1s and whatever this is. Because if there's one popular silhouette of all sneakers, one of the maybe the most iconic silhouette of all time, it's the Air Jordan 1s. And this is also one of the most duped shoes of all time. It's one of the most wide variety of quality materials, anything from like the shattered backboards down to your really affordable stuff. And so it's a tough comparison, but what I'm really looking for is now that we've established that trend of like, okay, they have the mainstream alternative, they make the outsole a lot cheaper, anywhere they can sneak fake leather in, they're gonna do it. That's what I'm trying to figure out with these. So then what is this mainstream shoe? Well, the brand is Jordan. The style is the Air Jordan 1 High OG. They weigh 15.5 ounces. They retail for $170 and they're made in China. And what is this shoe? Well, the brand is Nike. The style is the Dunk High Stadium Green. They weigh 15 ounces. I got them from Nordstrom Rack for $75. So literally half the price of the AJ ones, and they're made in Vietnam. So then what is this? Because it looks just like it, right? Pretty close. Well, this is actually this. It's a Dunk. I don't know why they didn't do, I guess they can't really do the Panda Dunks at Nordstrom Rack, but I'm like, you have Dunks. Why didn't you just do the popular Dunk at Nordstrom Rack? Why did you do the high top Dunk that is clearly made to look like a Air Jordan 1, but it's not an Air Jordan? It's, you know, so I'm like, what is going on with this? So how does it compare, starting with the AJ1? Jordans are known once again for having a wide variety of quality leathers, but for the most part, you almost always get all leather panels. And this specific model is basically leather all the way through. It's a nice 1.5 millimeter to 2 millimeters leather. It's got a nice feel to it. It's actually one of the better Nike leathers that we've seen, especially on the AJ1. Compare that to the high top Dunk, and looking at some of these cross sections, you can see it's real leather. The eye stay is, the swoosh is, this white leather is, I'm pretty sure this green is. And this is where the difference comes, because this pair and most of the AJ ones have a pretty decent leather. It has the grain in it, so it's got that smooth structure on top. They put like a top coat on, or in this case, like it's a pretty natural leather, just a little bit of pigment on top. Whereas this leather is a lot lower in the cross section, where they've cut off that higher quality leather with the grain, saved it for the better shoes, and then a lower cut off, they'll throw a nice heavy coat of plastic on top, so it looks like you've got that smooth grain pattern, when in all reality it's just plastic, and that's exactly what this leather is. And so at least it's leather, but it's a much inferior cut of leather that you don't honestly see that often with Nike. You see some other brands do this, but this to me points to it being intentionally cheaper. Because if you compare this leather of this Dunk to the Panda Dunks, the Panda Dunks have leather that's more similar to the Jordans. And so to me, that points to this being intentionally cheaper and intentionally trying to be basically an AJ1. But what about the rest of the stuff? Is the sidewall stitch real? Well, looking at the inside, you can see it, so that's clearly real, which is nice. How's the outsole? That's like there's like two clear things that we're identifying here. Oh, actually, that didn't bend. That's more what we were looking for. You know, because that clearly has something in there that's structuring it, whereas this does that, you know? So this might be the last hope for Nordstrom Rack footwear. But one of the most important things I think for this before we actually cut them in half is, where are these shoes at on the rest of the internet? Are these just exclusive to Nordstrom Rack? Are they on these brands' websites? Are they on other websites for cheaper? What is the actual price of these when you pull them outside of Nordstrom Rack? Well, looking at this Converse, like I said, I got it from Nordstrom Rack for $50 compared to the regular Converse, they're $65. So, you know, it's 15 bucks cheaper. But on Converse's website, these are $75. So these are $10 more than regular Chucks. And I have a feeling they're not gonna be better than regular Chucks. What about the Dunk lookalikes? You know, I got these from Nordstrom Rack for $64. A regular pair of Dunks is $120, and you can actually buy this shoe on Nike's website for $80. So it is $40 cheaper. And so that's what I really want to figure out at the end of the video is like, this being $40 cheaper on the site and being $60 cheaper at Nordstrom Rack, is all this excusable for the price point? That's what we're gonna figure out when we get it cut in half. Then to the Samba lookalikes, I got the Adidas lookalike for $55. I got the Puma lookalikes for $53. The regular Sambas are $100, so very similar, about half the price. Well, these Adidas fake-ish Sambas are on the Adidas site as well, and they're $75, so $25 cheaper. This feels like a lot less than $20 cheaper, like it should be like half the price, we'll see. And then the same thing with these are $70 on Puma's site. And then finally, to the high tops, before we cut them in half, I got these at Nordstrom Rack for $75. Your regular pair of Jordans, $160, $170. And I found these again on the Nike site, but not in this colorway, just a regular, it's actually a black and white colorway, for $150. So literally half the price. And if you did want to make this specific colorway, that'd be $10 more for $160. So that's the biggest discount, $75. And it has the most potential for not having the terrible outsole and actually is made of leather. So now let's cut these in half. Finally settled the debate. Are these cheaper specifically for Nordstrom Rack? Are they worth the price regardless of where they came from and what they're supposed to look like? And should you consider or not consider buying footwear from Nordstrom Rack? Let's find out. It's our scratch and dent sale, 30% off. So I wanted to show you what a scratch and dent wallet looks like. So nothing actually wrong with this wallet except for the mismatching color slightly. Just small cosmetic flaws, and if anything, it makes them more unique and more original. And plus, within the first week, they're gonna be more beat up than any scratch and dent product we sell anyway. So check it out below, 30% off while supplies last. Scratch and dent sale. Okay, we got them all cut in half, and even though these are still Nordstrom Rack shoes, it's still tallied up to a decent amount of money. So instead of doing these individual videos, we're always taking this gamble on doing these multi-shoe videos in the hopes that we can catch them into the algorithm and hopefully get some decent views. So wherever you can, support us, give us a like, give us a subscribe. If you want to support us other ways, we make a bunch of really cool handmade leather goods. That I started this whole business doing leather goods, and then that expertise I built is what started the YouTube channel when COVID hit. And so if you want to support us, check out those. Check out our collaborations we do that have really helped educate me in the footwear industry, working with some of the coolest brands, making some wild, over-the-top stuff. So thank you guys for supporting this, because that's how we're able to slowly do more and more of these multi-shoe hundreds and hundreds of dollar videos. So thank you guys. Now, let's see what's inside. So then what is on the inside? Well, comparing the two Converse, pretty much what we expected. This outsole is really, really thin. It's quite a bit thinner, it's cheaper. So why is this $10 more than this? I have no idea. Like, so I don't know if this is a game where they're like, oh, if we price them high and we discount them on like Nordstrom Rack, they'll look better than what they are. At the same time, they're still selling them on their site. And so why would Converse make this intentionally cheaper? It also doesn't have the felt on the bottom, which gets them in like through with cheaper tariffs because they can consider them slippers. So I don't know. Like this, it seems weird to me. Like this is clearly a cheaper version for $10 more. So maybe, that's a maybe on if Nordstrom Rack specifically is buying cheaper Converse. What about the non-dunk dunks? Exactly what we expected. That foam is missing on the inside. It does have like some structure and columns in the heel, but that outsole is so freaking thin, and you lose what ended up being a lot of the value that Nike puts into the dunk that we didn't see in some of the dunk alternatives like the Vans and the New Balances. That big, soft, squishy foam midsole, that leather upper, both of those are missing from this clearly dunk knockoff. And it's clearly worse. And to me, this is a clear attempt to make a dunk to sell to people that either can't afford dunks or don't know any different, but it's clearly an inferior product compared to the real deal. Then to the Samba lookalikes. Once again, echoed exactly what we expected. Super thin, cheap, crappy outsoles that do not support in any way. They're like half the thickness of the Sambas. And once again, an inferior product to the real deal, even though they look identical. Or nearly identical. And then finally, to the one we had the most hope for, what's on the inside? It's actually really similar. It is built like a regular pair of dunks, like this, because you've got that same midsole as a dunk, but you don't have that air unit in the heel that makes Air Jordans Air Jordans. But if we're being honest, the Jordans taper down to nothing in the forefoot, where this is built like a dunk, where you have a little bit of foam in the forefoot. And I'd honestly be willing to bet that the dunk high tops are more comfortable than the AJ1s. They obviously have different cultural significances, and clearly your AJ1s still have a better leather than the dunks. And I still think that this is intentionally cheaper, but at least it's somewhat on par with the mainstream alternative. So 1 out of 5's not crazy, but it's honestly kind of crazy at the same time, because if you go to Nordstrom Rack and you're not paying attention, you could easily end up with a non-pair of dunks that's way cheaper, that's way worse, less comfortable, less durable. People might call you out for like, those aren't even dunks, bro. Why are you buying fake dunks? So now we pretty well proved that the Nordstrom Rack pairs are cheaper than the mainstream alternatives they're clearly trying to emulate. So comparing the Nordstrom Rack pairs at the Nordstrom Rack price compared to the full price of the real deal, are the Nordstrom Rack pairs a better value because of the significant price discount? Well, looking at in reverse, I would honestly think that this is a better deal. You know, it's half the price, it is still leather, it's cheaper leather, but it's built about the same, they're gonna perform about the same. So in one instance, I think you are better off getting the dunks rather than the AJ1s. Then to the Sambas, I think honestly, you're better off going with the Sambas. Better materials, thicker outsole, even though it's almost twice the price, I think you're gonna get twice the shoe out of it. They'll probably last twice as long, and it will easily be twice as comfortable without this craziness going on. So I would not buy the Samba alternatives. I would just get the real deal, try to find out like a $20 discount on the real Sambas, because these are straight garbage. And then to the Panda pairs, once again, I think you have to go with the real deal. It's probably twice the shoe for twice the price. If you can get it at the regular price, I don't think this is worth 20 bucks. It's all fake materials, it's so cheap, it's so thin. I would just avoid these at all costs. I would try to save for the real deal. But if you got like a specific need for a black and white pair, you're trying to look like that style without actually spending the money, there's some case to be made, but it's just through and through garbage. And then finally, to the Converse. This was the most confusing to me. I'm like, how is this retailing for $10 more than their regular Chucks when it's a worse shoe? Like clearly, like this outsole is so terrible compared to the Converse. I wish you could feel this, because it's not just thinner. This almost has no structure to it. It's like paper. And this has some decent structure to it. I've always had pairs of Chucks. Like, they last a decent long time. They're still cheap, vulcanized construction, 65 bucks, you know. I would never, ever buy this over your cheaper mainstream Chucks. I don't know what this is. If any of these brands are clearly making an alternative to make it look like it's a better version at a discounted price, this is probably it. But at the same time, Nike's being a little sneaky with like, oh, we'll give you like AJ1 lookalikes, we'll give you like Dunk lookalikes. So now that we've seen everything, to the final questions, are you actually buying discounted high quality products, or they just look alikes. They're clearly lookalikes. It's clear what they're doing here. It's clear they're all cheaper. They're all just kind of a sneaky way of selling a discounted product. So can you trust Nordstrom Rack footwear? I wouldn't, not with the sneakers, because if you're not paying so close attention, you might accidentally buy what looks like a pair of Sambas that are not. And you almost don't know because all the shoes are all mixed around in different shoe boxes. You have no idea what you're actually buying. You have to like really look at the stickers. And for me, I would honestly rather just spend the extra money and buy like the real deal. You don't have to worry about wearing a lookalike and getting called out for it. You don't have to worry about what am I actually buying? This looks like leather when it's actually not any leather in the shoe whatsoever. And in some of these cases, they're not that good of a deal regardless of the price, regardless of what they are, what they look like. They're just terrible shoes through and through. And so no, I would not trust Nordstrom Rack shoes. I would look at every square inch of those shoes, look at the item number, and just make sure you know what you're actually buying, because clearly there's some deception going on. Is it unethical deception? Is it gross? Do I disagree with it? I don't think I do necessarily, because there's a lot of people out there that, you know, an extra $60 is a huge difference to them, and they can't afford to buy a real pair of Dunks, but they want something that looks like it. And so this is the best option you've got. And I'm okay with that, you know, but I just wish that Nordstrom Rack was just a little more transparent, was a little bit more honest, and actually maybe stock some decent quality shoes that actually are the real deal. Because I'd be willing to bet there's probably a lot of people that bought some of these assuming they were the real deal, and then they got home and maybe their friends or they looked at it in a little bit better light and realized they bought almost the real deal. And to me, even if it was half off and I didn't know that, I would still feel like I got cheated even at that half off discount. So I would not trust Nordstrom Rack footwear. That doesn't mean it's all bad. That doesn't mean you can't get some good stuff there, because the next video is a follow-up video. I bought like 6 or 7 New Balances from Nordstrom Rack to really look at one specific brand to see if you can get any kind of quality footwear from Nordstrom Rack at all, or if it's all just this way. And maybe we'll do a Nordstrom Rack boot video if this one does well. So thank you guys for all your support. See ya.